all about you. Hello and welcome to the show. I am Tawnya Marie. I'm an intuitive, energy healer, empath, and clairvoyant. I use my gifts to help transform your mind, body, and emotions. Many people today find it hard not to get overwhelmed by life, so I ask you, where is your focus? Where do you hold your emotions? Has everyday life made you focus on things that are less important? Every week, I will be helping my guests identify their stressors caused by block emotions that have manifested in the body. If you're interested in being a guest, please send an email to info@tawnyamarie.com. Stay tuned for after our guest. We will be doing a mindful meditation, helping us take time out and reconnect with our breath and our body.
Welcome to All About You. It's been a while and a lot has happened. We are in 2020 and the world feels a little upside down. So we're taking a new wave and a new track with this show. I have my co-host, Tommy Forbes. Say what's up, Tommy.
Hey.
She is an empowerment coach, motivating women to follow their dreams, listen to their heart, and open and awaken them in all forms of life, business, personal life, personally, families, relationships, marriages. So I thought this would be awesome because we are here to support each other. Lisa's story is phenomenal. And I asked her to be a guest again. You may recognize her. Lisa, thanks for coming back.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, definitely. It has been a challenging 2020 and a lot of people have been struggling. So I hadn't done the show, and as you know, for a while. So I've had my own struggles this year. We all have, in many different shapes and forms. So when Lisa kind of came to me, she started my Rainbow Energy course. She was telling me about her story. I said, you know what? So many people are struggling that let's talk about your story. I think people will benefit from it, realizing that just like we have us three here, there's support. You're not alone in this journey, even though 2020 like that. There's people that love you, and we hope that you get inspired to know that you're loved. Lisa, I'm not going to go too much because I want to say, but you talked about having anxiety and depression and living with that. Why don't you go ahead and tell us your story?
I'm not sure if I knew it was anxiety and depression, but I was always classified as a nervous kid. I always had tummy issues, nausea. I was really shy as a little kid. Just out of sort. I never felt like I fit in, even in my own body. I was just never comfortable with who I was or what was happening. All the way into my high school years. And I think the easiest thing to do for me was the minute that I started to drink, and I had my first beer when I was a sophomore in high school. And then all of a sudden that anxiety subsided for a minute. I was not in my body anymore. I felt like I just wasn't, it was like two me's.
Right.
So that's how I coped with the anxiety. And I don't know if I wasn't clinically depressed, but I wasn't happy in my soul. I had a smile, I had friends, I did the things, but now looking back, I can see that I was depressed for sure. Do you want me to keep going on?
Totally.
Okay. So I think it was in my 20s. I would say I was a typical high school kid. I had beers on the weekends, partied at friends' parents' house. We drank beer in the woods. Nobody would have known. I mean, I was captain of my field hockey team. I was an average student. What I guess you would consider popular. I mean, I don't know, but I just never, looking back at those years, I'm like, oh God, how awkward was I and how uncomfortable was I? In my 20s is when I went to a general practitioner, and, you fill out the questionnaire about depression. I don't know if you've done that before, and you answer the questions and you because I knew I didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right. And I think that was the beginning of, we can get into the spiritual journey, but like following my guidance to speak out and say that something wasn't quite right with me. And my general practitioner put me on an antidepressant at that time in my 20s, early 20s, I think it was. And I wished at that point that I had seen a psychiatrist and not a general practitioner, because general practitioners will just write a script and just keep writing the script and keep writing the script. You keep calling, they're going to keep writing it. So I was on a certain antidepressant for many, many years. And then even when I tried to go off of them, I still had like what I would call brain zaps and like issues with my brain. Like it just, I felt so off.
Were you drinking when you were on antidepressants?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I never stopped drinking. So drinking was always, I'm not saying 24 hours. This was like in my 20s more. 20s is when I was introduced to drugs, actually. So drugs were easier because you could do it during the day and at work and not smell like liquor. So I had I threw my back out and was prescribed opiates. I think it was Percocet or something.
Oh, so you're taking pain pill drugs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I took it all. So in my 20s, I did like pot, then I tried Coke, then I tried LSD, I did mushrooms. I mean, I did like all of those. I've never like dived into heroin, thankfully, because I think I would be dead if I did. But then after that weaned off and I got like a job, like my later 20s was when I threw my back out. I think I was 27 and I was introduced to pain medicine. And that's where I'm glad that I was introduced to it, because I believe it took me to a bottom faster than I would have with just alcohol. So right. I did what you call doctor shop. I was taking pain they're called pain meds. They get rid of your pain. I was experiencing so much emotional pain from just everything that I carried along and never looked at in my life. I've never addressed and looked at anything. I was always trying to like run from it, talking about like trauma and from when I was a young kid. So when I started taking pain medicine, it was like, I just felt numb. I felt fantastic because I wasn't feeling anything. And so I just doctor shopped. I would get one prescription, then I would go to like the ER a couple months later, and then get another vial. And I would just like go around, and I can't believe my insurance companies never found out, because I would like go to different doctors and say the same thing and get my pain meds. So I'm not sure where you want me to go.
When did you hit bottom? Yeah. When did you hit bottom? You said you got there faster?
Yes. Okay. So what I considered doctor shopping was still legal, because to me, I was getting them from a doctor and I was doing it the right way. It was when I started doing different things that weren't legal to get my drugs. And I was dating somebody at the time that was just like, look, I know what you're doing. You're done. We're done. I'm calling your mom and your dad, because I was still like, I would have been financially dependent on them. He called them and he was like, she's an addict and an alcoholic. And he kicked me out the next day. And I was like, oh my God. So I went and lived with my brother. And I tried from that point on to get sober for an entire year. Every day I went to a meeting. I went to almost 300 meetings, and I never got more than 90 days sober. And the reason I didn't was I was never looking at my issues. I was still running. And the minute I started to feel, I wanted to not feel. So I would get like 60 days, and then I would I could feel it bubbling up, all my stuff, and I would just drink it away. And then, it was like this constant struggle. And then finally I was like, I got in a car in Pennsylvania, and my parents were living in Florida, and I drove to Florida drunk. It took me 2 or 3 days to get there. I literally drank the whole time. And when I got there, I thought everything was going to be better. It wasn't. And at that point, I was drinking all the time. In the morning, I would wake up, go underneath the bed, drink wine, warm wine from underneath the bed. I just did not want to deal with my life. And I was driving around in Florida one day, and I drove up to the top of this parking garage, and I was parked, and I was standing at the top, and I can still like feel everything. It was a warm, humid day in Florida, and the wind was whipping around, and I was bawling my eyes out, and I didn't want to do it anymore, but I felt like such a bad person inside that I didn't even feel worthy of God and asking for help from God. So I had such a close relationship with my grandmother, and I was crying to her, and I was like, please take me to where you are. I don't want to do this anymore. I can't live another day like this. And that was like the first. So what happened was, out of nowhere, I heard a man's voice in my head that said, call Hanley. And I literally, it was like somebody screeched the record. Like, I was like, what was that? That was just a voice in my head. And I had heard of this Hanley, that it was a rehabilitation center in the Florida area. But this amazing calm came over me, and I got to work. I got in my car. I mean, this was 2005. So we didn't have cell phones like iPhones. I had a flip phone. So I didn't know how to like contact anybody. And I drove home, and I got like the white pages out, and I called this rehab. And I said, I'm an alcoholic and I need to come in. I'm going to be there tomorrow morning. And this is the kicker. I knew I was serious because I gave them my parents' phone number. And I said, if you call me tomorrow and I don't pick up, call this number, because I need to be there. Because we do a lot of things and reach out for help when we're drunk and we're high, and like, but then when it's like come to really do it, it's like, oh, I was just kidding. So I knew I was serious. And then I had gone in, and I was living with my parents at the time, and I sat down, and I had said, I sat Indian style on the floor. I said, Mom and Dad, I am going to Hanley tomorrow. And they had known when it was. And I think my dad actually was like, wait, Hanley, what's that? And I was like, the rehab. He goes, isn't that really expensive? And I knew it was. And I looked at him. It was the first time I said it out loud, but I said, I'm going to die. I'm going to die if I don't go.
Is that what you were planning when you
Absolutely. I think I kind of missed that point when I was on the top. Yeah. Sorry. I think I missed that point when I was on the top of the parking garage and I was calling out. I wanted to kill myself. I didn't want another day. I was looking down at the floor, and the problem was I wasn't high enough. I was like, I could fall and just be really injured. I don't think I would kill myself unless I fell on my head. Like, there's all these things. And then I knew, I was like, I just don't want to live another day like this.
Right.
So, and that's when I started asking for help. I was like, fuck, like I am not in that, like, there was so much going on. And I knew that I would either kill myself, or by drunk driving, I would kill myself because I wanted to kill myself. But like, I knew it was the end.
So after your dad, so you're on the floor, and after you said that, like, I'm going to die, what did he say?
Okay. That's all I remember. I don't remember what happened. I think I got up and left. I'm not sure. He might be able to tell the story later, but I know in my memory, it was like done. Like, it's the first time I ever.
So what happened in rehab? What was the
So I walked into rehab, and I remember saying to the nurse, I'm not leaving here until I'm better, because I had been to other rehabs, and it was like an 8-day that my insurance covered. I had been to outpatient rehab, but I knew that I needed to address my issues, and I knew I needed a safe place to do that. And I knew all these things, and I knew that if I didn't do it there, I might repeat the cycle again. So I remember saying, I'm not leaving until, like, I'm better. So I did. We addressed the trauma. I saw a psychiatrist there, which is a whole nother story. And I'll let you.
Can I ask a question?
Next question. Yeah.
Just before we go into the next piece of that.
Yeah.
When you're saying it right now, you're so strong, and you had this inner knowing. I want to ask, did you feel that strong then? And I feel it's so important to really, like, when you're saying it right now, you could say, oh, I knew all this, but how, can you talk a little bit more of, like, how you didn't feel strong, but like
Mhm.
do you get what I'm asking?
Yeah. I had absolutely no sense of myself. I called myself a chameleon. Whoever, whatever friend I was in, you like that music? That's what I like. Oh, I was with a boyfriend. You do that? Okay, now I do that. I had no idea who I was. Um, and that's a huge part of it. So when it was left, when everybody else was gone and it was just me, I had no idea who I was. And I had no connection to a God. So I felt completely alone. And
So
that's
if you weren't,
that's the
were you raised with anything, with any type of religion?
yeah, I went to Catholic school my whole life. And I remember early on, I mean, even like we didn't go to church every Sunday. And I remember being like, oh my God, it's a mortal sin that I'm not going to church every Sunday. I'm going to go to hell. So, and a lot of people have different opinions of Catholicism. And I don't want to say if you believe in, if you're Catholic and you believe in God and that's working for you, that's good. But for me, I thought of it as like a chastising God, a God that I wasn't worthy of because of all of those things that I did. I was never, that's why I called for my grandmother and not God. I would sit in meetings and AA meetings and say the Our Father, and I would cry through them and say, "Who the fuck am I? Sorry, who am I? Who am I to ask? Who am I to talk to you? Who am I? I am just this." Like I felt like nothing, and it took a long time to discover because when you go, like when I particularly went to AA, and you need to believe in a power greater than yourself. And that was huge. When I went into the rehab, that was my power greater than myself. I'm not leaving until you guys do something to help me. So that was it. And then when I was there, it was more, I would go out and sit by the lake, and that's where I would connect. I would say, well, I don't know if there's a God up there, but this feels good to me. And this is where I feel a part of something. So nature was my higher power for a long time. And then it's evolved since then, thankfully. But yeah.
That's beautiful.
Sorry.
It's such the
Awesome. Okay, so I can't identify. Sorry, I like how you can't identify with God, but you identified with nature. You found some glimpse of joy, hope, and peace, and even if it wasn't, but you found it in nature. So okay, obviously you have been through a tremendous amount of stuff, and I know a lot of people that may be watching this is struggling as well. How has your life been since then? Like looking back.
I don't even feel like the same person, to be honest. And this is a problem too. Okay, so I have to relate and I have to say this. When I was early in recovery, and I would hear people that have people more than, let's just say, 4 years of sobriety, I would feel, even at that point, even though I had made that decision, well, that'll never be me. Like, I'm still down here. So I'm not going to fluff up the 12 year, like until I got married and had my kids, like it was 7 years or something. And it was hard. I redid stories and patterns that I was doing when I was drinking, but I had to address them and face them sober. And that was really hard. It wasn't easy, but it made me slowly grow into a stronger person and slowly build that relationship with my higher power. And that it was me, that a sense of self that was not controlling, because that's not the word I want to say. I was participating in my life. I wasn't letting life dictate me. So it was tough for all those years, leading up until maybe a year before I found my husband. But yeah, so I connected with my husband, who I went to high school with, like 20 years later. He sent me a Facebook request, and a year later we were married, and then a year later we had babies. Like, so now we're married with twins, and then the spirituality is a whole nother part. I mean, there's so much to the story.
I love that. when you said you were having to face it sober, were you getting any help? Were you in counseling?
Yeah. So I was heavy into so the way that I personally did it, because I went to my first 30 days of rehab and then they asked me to stay. So I stayed another 30 days and I was 60 days in their rehab. Then I went to their halfway house for 6 months and I lived with women. And so I did that. And then when I moved out, I moved with a sober friend. So I knew that I never wanted to be alone in that first year because I still didn't trust myself. So then I was with a sober friend until we both had our 1 year sobriety. Interesting. And then I moved in an apartment 3 doors down from another sober person. So I really eased back into life because that was my story and my path. And then, we moved apart from each other, but I consistently went to AA. I consistently was connected to the rehab that I went to. I was in therapy for 4 or 5 years of my early sobriety. So any time that I had an issue, I not only had my sober friends to lean on, I had my counselor to lean on, and get that advice, and a sponsor who would tell me how to get through it soberly, and then a counselor who would help with my mental health. So I had a team.
Right. And I think that's important to know, that it was not a quick fix. Not a quick fix. It was a journey, and it was a healing journey. So thank you, Lisa, for telling your story. And I know when we had kind of first met a while ago, you really got into mindful and meditation. And because I was in my show with a little meditation, and I want to talk about how that also helped you, but I want to make sure Tommy doesn't have any questions before we go into that.
No, thank you, Lisa.
Yes, thank you, Lisa, for telling your
story.
You're welcome. If anybody is struggling, we will definitely post the 1-800 number to reach out. Addictions, you're needing help, know that you are not alone. And I hope Lisa's story inspired you to show that the journey may not always be easy, but if you have support from AA, counselors, friends, that you're worthy. You are absolutely worthy to be here. You are loved, supported, you not feel like. And that Lisa's story that was like story and Lisa all at the same time, being difficult, overcoming, and being on the other side of it, that there is hope, especially in this time now when our world feels so dark, that there is hope. And Lisa, why don't you talk a little bit about what you got into now since your meditation and all that stuff.
Okay. So my brother passed away when I was maybe 8 years sober. And after a few years, I wanted to connect with him. So I hired a medium to come to my house and I had a reading. And at that time I got some big messages, and basically my brother was like, take off your Wonder Woman cape, stop doing everything for everybody else, put your blinders on and focus on yourself. You need to focus, because it's still as a mom, I was putting all of my energy out there, and I still wasn't really working, especially with two kids. And the whole experience was so awesome. And the medium had said to me, look, just if you want to connect with your brother, just meditate for 10 minutes every day for 30 days and see what happens. And I was like, okay. So I just did guided meditations on YouTube for 10 minutes. And honestly, it was that maybe after 2 weeks, I started noticing colors. The colors were brighter than I noticed. I would ask for signs and I was getting them, like, hey, John. I was specifically at that time talking to my brother. He was my closest connection. And then I started receiving signs, which made me even more intrigued about this other side. So then I was introduced, I'd always been interested in energy, and I took a Reiki 1 class, and then I took a Reiki 2 class, all the while meditating and connecting deeper and learning my intuition and what is the voice that I'm hearing in my head. Is it my higher self? Is it my guide? So it's really evolved. And it was all because of that the one reading that I had in the meditation. It all started with meditation.
But that is, and you also had it though in your breaking point.
Yeah. And it took me a really long time to realize, oh, that was a clairaudient experience. Like I did hear a guide back then.
I've been getting these my whole entire life.
Yeah,
and
wait a second.
Together.
Yeah.
I love that. Sometimes it takes us at the edge of breaking before we realize that, we have one of those magical moments. So, well, let's do it. Let's do a little meditation. Let's just close our eyes and let's just breathe. Focusing on our heart and our center, and we have so much gratitude for Lisa, her story, being vulnerable and expressing the raw truth of her journey. Reaching out our heart and our love to anyone else that may be in the same situation, who are struggling, who feels like they're all alone in this world of chaos. Knowing that the light will shine again and that the light within you is the only thing that matters. Your health, your well-being, who you are, and the love inside of you. We place both hands on our heart and we feel our heartbeat. And we say thank you for this wonderful heart, our journey that sometimes we don't understand, the lessons that we've chosen, the hard ones and the easy ones. They've made us who we are. We come forward with a compassionate heart for everyone on this planet, knowing that we're all here just doing our best and loving each other. We breathe and we release and we let go and know that we are protected and we are loved. And that there is always light. There is a sunrise every morning. And there's new beginnings every single day. And that the choices that we make, we need to listen to our heart. What's right for us. Enjoying it in pure love, that the ripple effect begins to go out. Thank you, Lisa, so much for your journey. Thank you for sharing your story. Tommy, thank you for being here and being a co-host. Namaste. You guys, thank you so much. Remember, you're not alone. Just like we have each other here, you've got somebody. So thank you, Lisa. Sending you much love. Tommy, thank you for being amazing. And you guys have a fabulous day. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.